talking about the boycott the Final Four. Dad and I talked about it at the beginning of the show. I think these athletes today, in basketball and football especially, are treated like kings. I mean, they're flying on private jets. They're staying at the nicest hotels. They've got cooks in there cooking for them, carving meat. I mean, they're living better than they ever will. 98% of them are. Do these athletes really need to get paid? I just think they're getting the cost of living check. I think enough's enough. I'm tired of hearing LeBron James and all these people because I don't know what the solution is, and you can't do it for all the sports. Is this thing getting overblown?
Yeah, I think so, because I think you have some people in the media that don't like the concept of college athletics, and they're basically social justice warriors who disguise themselves as sports writers, so they fan the flames. And then you have athletes that, former athletes that want their piece of the puzzle or a piece of the pie, and see the money, and it's not as easy of an argument as people make. Now, that being said, I think two things should happen. I think there needs to be a broad commitment across the board to do everything you can for your student athletes in your major sports, because they do bring in the money. But I'll tell you this, in college basketball, if the NBA starts a D-League or enhances their D-League and does away with one-and-dones, and the top 50 players in the country every year go to a basketball academy and play minor league basketball, that's not going to change the enthusiasm for college basketball. The rights to the NCAA tournament are still going to be astronomical. So I think that on that side of the argument, some of these people think the players could just all get together and get sponsored by, Hoosier Tire and go out and generate the same sort of interest. I mean, it's an entertainment type of deal, and college sports fans are loyal to their school, not necessarily the individual players. So I think that when you look at it from that standpoint, there needs to be a little bit of, hey, calm down here. Now, there needs to be a commitment across the board for every institution to do everything they can to take care of their players. I think that it's a little bit insane that players can't get a cut of the money when their jersey is being sold or their likeness is being used for promotional purposes, and that includes autographs. So, you got this amateurism thing. So here's my deal. I mean, let them sell their jersey, let them charge for autographs, that type of thing, and then defer the payment. Put it in you don't want them to get paid while they're playing. Well, most kids need some money to start out their lives if they don't make the pros, or they need some money to kind of help them. So put the money, in an account and give it to them when they exhaust their eligibility, because that to me is what the un-American part of it is that, the argument that if you're a theater major and you're really good, you can go do summer stock work and get paid thousands of dollars to act with your talent. But with the NCAA, you can't do that if you're a football or basketball player with endorsements and things like that. So, I think that from that standpoint, there needs to be something done. I also, especially in football, like the idea of health insurance for these guys, maybe even for life. That's expensive, but there's enough money being brought in to do that, to fund that, especially if you pool it. So there's things they could do, I think, to make it a little more fair. But just giving them 40% of the NCAA tournament rights, I mean, that's just not, the bottom line is there would still be major interest in college football and college basketball if the players weren't even there, because you just go down a level of player and you're still going to have a good team. It's the NBA in general, to me, is becoming much more about individual players than teams. And it's almost becoming an individual sport, and that's fine. But college basketball is still about the team, and college football is definitely about the team, and even pro football is definitely more of a team deal. And people pull for teams; they spend their money on team gear. In the NBA, maybe it's a little different. They want to buy an individual player's merchandise and things like that. So, I think there's some common sense solutions to it if the NCAA would just think about it. But it's a bureaucracy run primarily by academics, and I don't think academics particularly are in touch with the reality of the sports world and all that. So I doubt anything will get done. But boycott the NCAA tournament all you want. In our society these days, it wouldn't surprise me. Ruin it for everybody, and then you're going to see nobody at your games next year. The viewership is going to drop. Those rights fees that they pay for March Madness are going to be very much in peril. And then there will be no money brought in for you to get paid with. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, they've taken the money, though, and they're pouring it back in. I mean, you look at these facilities at Alabama and Clemson and South Carolina, how these guys are eating and how they're traveling and the things they're doing. They would never, unless they make it to the NBA or the NFL, they'll never live like this on a consistent basis like they're living right now. And I think sometimes that's lost in the shuffle. These guys go, I hear a lot of these teams, where'd y'all stay? They stay at the Ritz. They stay at the high-end hotels when they travel. There's unlimited food out there for these guys to eat. And we're only talking about a few of them that are going to go pro. So I just think it's overblown. But I don't like, I'm glad the FBI got involved as far as catching these coaches taking money to steer kids in certain directions. To me, that's sleazy. The agent thing's been going on forever, but these people paying off the assistant coaches to steer kids in direction, that was a new one on me. JC, had you ever heard that prior to that going down this year when those guys were arrested?
Well, there's always been talk of money exchanging hands for influence. What bothered me a little bit was you're taking the recruiting decision basically out of the hand of a player and his parents and putting it in the hand of an unscrupulous assistant coach and a runner for an agent. And what got me was I was reading, the conversation they had with Chuck Martin at Indiana. And look, it didn't say that Chuck Martin did it, and obviously it didn't happen, but the runner for the agent was like, well, we'll take care of you if you, send these two players to our agency. We'll send this player to you to play for you. Well, how do you know that that particular institution is the best institution for that young player to go to? And how do you know that that's the best agency for the two older players to go to? I mean, these are decisions these kids should be making on their own. And then they're not, and they're not even being made by the coaches and the actual agents. It's being made by a very selfish middleman who's profiting off of, basically like a headhunter, like a corporate headhunter, or a search firm. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how you describe it. I think those are the nicer ways to put it. But it's sad that you have people that really, their only interest and reason to be involved with the sport is so they can manipulate decisions that are life decisions for young players. And what makes them qualified to do that? I have no idea.
Yeah, no doubt. JC, Alabama's taking a graduate transfer from East Carolina, Gardner Minshew. Is coming here. I guess that's maybe his insurance. Have you ever seen this kid play? What kind of quarterback is he if you have? And I guess maybe it's just an insurance policy that it gives Alabama a fourth guy on scholarship. He's only here 1 year. It won't affect recruiting next year as far as bringing in a young guy. I think that's why they didn't want to sign a freshman so people could use it. But what do you know about Gardner Minshew from East Carolina?
Not much. I mean, it's East Carolina is so bad right now. And I used to watch them a lot. They made a terrible hire when they fired Ruffin McNeil, so I don't watch him a lot. I mean, he seems to be a solid guy. I have no idea if he'll see the field next year or not, but I understand having the insurance policy. Injuries happen. Sometimes you lose 1-2 quarterbacks, and then where are you going to go? So I understand the idea behind taking a guy that's older, that's got some experience, that can come in there and either get you out of a game or, you know, perhaps start a game where, you know, you're limited. You know, and hey, he gets to go potentially win a national championship, which is there's a chance to do that every year at Alabama. And, you know, it seems to me like that was maybe the idea, go down there and kind of be part of a winning team, since East Carolina's so terrible.
Yep. Dad, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you.
You have that on speakerphone. There's so much noise. We can't. You got so much noise coming in.
Y'all go ahead.
No, we can hear you now. Go ahead. It's not as much noise now. Go ahead.
Well, I would like to hear the recruiting pitch that they made on a quarterback like that. That would be a very interesting pitch with Jones' kid there. What you would say. It would be sort of interesting. The other thing, going back to what you've been talking about before I lost you, was that you'd have one lawsuit after another by the ladies if things didn't go exactly, you know, the way they wanted them for their sport. You'd be in a mess right there to start that off with. And, you know, we got enough lawsuits as there is. That's all I got to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Title IX issue. That's why I think that you know, letting the players, you know, sell their jerseys and likeness and profit off of that is the way to go. Because, hey, if you're a great women's basketball player and there's enough interest in people buying your jersey, this is America, and you can go sell yours too. I don't know that the numbers are going to come out the same, but go for it. And that's the unfortunate part of Title IX, is that, you know, it is so much about equality and this almost, you know, socialist approach to college sports. But, you know, we all know in the real world that doesn't fly. And in our country, which is a constitutional republic, we don't do things that way. It's if you're better, you get a bigger piece of the pie. And unfortunately, although women's basketball is very popular and all the other women's sports, softball is very popular in this part of the country, they just don't bring in the money. And so you can make it proportional. You got a great softball player who wants to go sign autographs, or a great basketball player. I mean, Asia Wilson at South Carolina is probably the most decorated individual athlete in terms of accomplishments, team and individual, in Gamecock history. You know, she could probably, you know, make a few bucks signing autographs or selling jerseys or whatever, but those are few and far between. I mean, Shameik Holtz-Claw at Tennessee with the Lady Vols, obviously they would be set up good. And in the women's sports, it would create kind of an unfair deal, because then you have more of a financial incentive to go to UConn or a place where it's very popular. You know, same with baseball. I mean, you have more of a financial incentive to go to a school that's a baseball school. So it would be, but hey, look, like I said, life isn't fair. You know, I mean, life isn't, you know, we don't, when we get out here in the real world, we don't sit there and go, well, we all should just be the same, you know, because then we have no motivation to go be great or whatever. And I think, too, guys, that would help. If there's a financial incentive to market yourself, a lot of these players struggle with that. And I think that if there's a financial incentive to do that, then, you know, you're gonna get a lot of education, you know, which is what the NCAA claims to be about how to exist in the real world, the professional world, if and when your playing career comes to an end. So I don't really see the negative of it. And I think that's the legal route, that if players wanted to sue, I think that's the route that they could take to win, you know, because, you know, hey, I'm Jadeveon Clowney. I got my number 7 jersey. They're selling like hotcakes, you know, and I don't see a penny. You know, that's a little bit of a deal there. But other than that, as far as just giving players salaries and stuff like that, yeah, I'm not in favor of that. I think you want to bump the living stipend up a little bit. You want to continue to fly them around in private jets, let them stay in the best house. That's fine. But as far as just divvying up the money, that a school brings in and giving a big portion of it to 50% to players, that would ruin most schools' operating budgets in the athletic department. So that's something I'm against. But, the other stuff, being able to, make money off yourself and your talent outside of the team, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Yeah,
we'll just see. Something will change. And I agree with you in some ways with those kind of things. Or let you, if you make the NCAA tournament, you can fly your mother and dad to the site if the distance of, or they can pay for their, their mileage or something like that. And that's helping, the parents get there and see their children play.
That kind of stuff drives me crazy that they don't let parents do. I mean, that's common sense to me. But, above and beyond that, I think that, those other things could happen.
All right, JC, tell everybody where they can find you over there in South Carolina.
All right. Got a JC and Morgan podcast up on iTunes this week. Also, check out my politics and sports show. It's called the POS Show. We got a new website, theposshow.com, with all our episodes on it, so check us out there. Also, Twitter, 24/7 Sports, Facebook, wherever you want to find me. I've got a big old head, so you can spot me a mile away.
You're everywhere, JC. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.